Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Real View podcast. I am your host, Allison Wiley. Joining me today, our special guest, her name is Angela Yungk. She is a managing broker and lead mentor with the Arterra Realty in Florida, dedicated to helping agents thrive in their real estate careers. As the founder of Art Hive magazine and previous producer and host of PBS's Art Adventures, Angela brings a unique blend of media expertise and real estate know-how. She's passionate about empowering new agents, focusing on email marketing and media strategies tailored for real estate professionals, and providing creative solutions to elevate careers and fuel growth. Angela, welcome onto the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yes, we're so excited to be talking to you today. I always enjoy when I talk to people who dabble in my world of marketing, but also do real estate. And we have the same brain, we think the same way, and we're going to dive into how we should be focusing on our brand, but also how we should be building these relationships at the same time, and why those relationships are really going to be your founding blocks for what you do in your career. But before we get started and dive into today's show, I would like to hear a little bit more about you, Angela. Could you share with us a little bit about you, how you got started in real estate, and what's led you to where you are today?
Sure. So my past actually starts with being a print magazine publisher. I started that career and I was in print magazine publishing for almost a decade, built that up from the ground up, and had the pleasure of working with celebrity publicists and having the magazine in stores. It's a crazy career I never expected to have. But while I was doing my publishing business, I did also have my real estate license, right? And I would do, transactions 1 to 4 every year. So it kind of kept me dabbling in the real estate world, but it wasn't something I promoted or talked about whatsoever. And obviously, when my magazine we ended our publication, I had to now kind of decide, what career path am I going to go into? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in real estate full time. And I made that clear decision in 2022, which was, the worst economic in the housing industry for the past 30 years. So great time to learn. And then I became a real estate broker and now managing broker. But what I truly realized was how much this is a challenging career, so much more than I had even realized, because I had gone from a part-time mindset to a full-time position and realized I kind of wasn't any more special than the other agents, sadly. I knew I'm good. I know that I'm great. I know that I do a great job, but I am one of many, like all of us are, right? And then you start to realize that you really have to go into this career with a certain type of mindset. Some would say creative and marketing really does help to understand how to leverage and actually grow a lucrative career. And so that blessing of having been a print magazine publisher and gone through all those wonky experiences truly helped me learn how to be a successful agent today.
I love that. No, it really does. I think, there's so much when you have the marketing hat on, there's so much I think that translates over into the real estate career. And it does change quite a bit. I mean, going from part-time to full-time, the amount of work, I think that's a huge myth in the industry, is people are just like, yeah, I can just do it on the side and, do my, whatever, and not work that hard. And then it's like, no, if you want to make this your full-time career, like the amount of work and constant, attention that it deserves when you want to be successful in doing this full time. It really does matter. And I think there is a huge difference. And it sounds like you've learned that. And now you're mentoring other agents, bringing them along in your journey and working through things with them. In your experience mentoring and bringing along, new agents and things like that, what are some challenges or things that you're seeing that agents today are really struggling with, or what's coming up in those conversations you're having with them?
I mostly see the lack of understanding of what this career truly is, which is a long-term game, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no quick wins in real estate. And I go back to the mindset. We have to go into any agent that's listening to this, we have to go into it with the right mindset. It's kind of like a good analogy, I think, about when you go to work out, right? If you're going to decide that you're going to run a triathlon in the next year, you're not going to go to a personal trainer and be like, okay, really quick, figure out how I do this. I need to do this in like a 1 month. They're going to laugh. And actually, on a side note, I was a personal trainer, so I understand that back in the day, how challenging
it really does happen, right?
But you have to go into understanding this is going to take time, and I am willing to wait it out, and I am willing to take the time to learn and develop the skills that are necessary. When you can understand that, you go at it differently. You have to be prepared to maybe not have income for 6 months, some years. And if you expect that, it's not so challenging as, I can't believe this is happening to me. And I see it also in a lot of, unfortunately, the Facebook groups too that I follow of real estate agent success or advice. I mean, if anyone goes into those, everyone kind of almost has the same challenges. How do I make money quick? How do I get clients fast? And the problems is they're using the words quick and fast, and nothing about real estate happens in that manner. Okay. Yeah. So if we first collectively decide this is going to take time, dedication, and effort, now you go into it where, okay, now I believe that. Now what's my strategy? And that is where the new agent and the part-time agent also has to understand. And if you don't, you're going to be fighting it the rest of your career.
Yeah. No, so true. And I mean, I just think it's funny. If it was fast and easy, like, wouldn't everybody be doing it? I mean, doesn't everybody want to make money fast and easy? Like, you ask, everybody wants to do that. And, it's not always that simple. And you do have to work at it, and you do have to be patient and let, things develop. And one of those things that needs to develop is those relationships, right? Which is what we're going to get into in today's show. And when we're thinking of agents who are just starting out, and I think, you mentioned this too, a lot of the times there is such a focus on perfecting your brand, getting your brand out there, knowing who you are, knowing what you do with. I need to focus on my brand, and that needs to be perfect before I can even start, in this career, which may be true a little bit, right? But what you say and what I've heard from you is that, yes, your brand is important, but it's not everything. And without a huge part of your brand, which is those personal relationships, that's going to lack. And you're not going to be successful and have your long-term career, right? Which is what you mentioned. You're not going to have that long-term career without those strong relationships. Why do you think that so many agents are sold on this, and that's kind of maybe a misconception coming into this, that you need to be so focused on your brand, and kind of that's how agents come into this with this mentality? Why do you think that is?
I think the first problem is that's what they see other successful people already doing and are applying it to themselves. Mm-hmm. A brand is really developed over time. Sometimes you're going to go into a business not even knowing what your brand is and who you are, and it is established later on. However, we live in a world today where we want results. We want to show it off on Instagram. We want to show everyone we're successful. There is a time element in all of this. And sometimes your brand is not developed for years down the road. I mean, even going back to my magazine, I remember we didn't kind of even know who we were at the start. We were just a creative magazine, and we blossomed into arts, culture, technology, education. That wasn't who we first saw ourselves. And we didn't focus in on a brand as who we were, because you might change your mind in a couple of years of what your brand wants to look like. So truly, when I was in the magazine business, what I had to do is I had to make and build relationships. I had to convince somebody a piece of paper was worth thousands of dollars. It's a lot more challenging than it sounds. It's really hard. And truly say, I'm going to give you a return on investment. Give me thousands of dollars. That's a lot to ask somebody. And this translates into real estate. If we are asking someone to give us their time and their money from what we're going to do to help them, you have to be willing to deliver. And going back to the branding, I think that you can start as a real estate agent today and decide who you're going to be as a brand later on. Yes. Don't worry about that so much. I'm going to just point out right now, I have seen top 1% agents that have the worst logo in the entire world. Okay. So obviously their logos are something that apparently don't matter to their clients, and they're not special, right? So can this agent I'm talking about have a better logo? Probably. Is it going to get her any more business? Probably not. They just want to hire her. they trust her, they like her, and they know her. Now, the brand is more the visible presence that you're leaving for people to remember later on when somebody wants to come see you. And I even think about branding with social media, like if we're talking about Instagram, think of it more as a billboard on the side of the street that when people pass by, they're going to remember you and they may not use you for 9, 12 months. I mean, what people sell a house every 7 to 10 years. So think about the next time you're going to see your client, they might show up in a decade. You're going to need more people to roll in and get business. So I think that it's that we see it online, we see other people focusing on brand, and we think we have to have it, but you don't to get going. You just have to build those relationships.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's almost like once you build those relationships, that the brand kind of almost evolves from that. I mean, is that in your experience too, that like it will happen naturally? And you're saying, like, hey, this could take a couple of years, and it's because you work, you build those relationships, you get that strong clientele base that your brand kind of naturally evolves out of that. Is that kind of what you've seen too?
100%.
Yeah.
And just go out and be authentically engaging with people. I mean, I've actually gotten tons of business in my neighborhood, and I moved into my new neighborhood when it was a pandemic. So I didn't even truly meet my neighbors till a couple of years in. And I've done several transactions for several neighbors. They didn't know my brand and they don't think they really care. They just met me as a person. They decided they liked and trusted me, and I allowed a relationship to build over time, and I didn't push it. I just let them know, hey, I'm here, let me know. And then they chose to use me. And I think that everybody is not, most agents are not willing to wait it out. And if you're not willing to wait it out, this unfortunately may not be the career for you, or you're going to have to do something on the sidelines while you're developing a career. I don't want to knock part-time agents. Like, I want to say also that there's a report out also where it talked about the amount of agents that do production. And I believe the numbers were 49% of agents do 0 to 1 deals a year. And then 70% do kind of the rest up there, right? And then we kind of know that the 1%ers are, the top echelon agents, right? So in this report, they actually found that most agents are part-time agents because they went into the deep dive of people's names and then found them working at other locations. And I kind of make that mention because you kind of can build your client base off of the first people you work with. So make sure to leverage that. Like if you're in a first responder field, leverage those people, learn how medical loans work for if you're in the nursing field and your doctors can work with you. Like, don't be afraid to dive into it. And I don't want to discourage part-time agents. I want to encourage them because a lot of times you need that sustainability of income to actually grow in real estate.
100%. And I'm glad you brought that up. And I think, especially with the younger generation, I know like at Ohio Realtors, our membership, especially our younger agents, they are not doing this full time. And the younger generation that's coming out right now and entering the workforce, they are having that 2, 3, 4 jobs at a time, multiple streams of income. And you're right. It's just as important to be focusing on those relationships, whether you're doing real estate full time or you're doing it on the side. I think, what you're saying is those relationships are so important no matter what level you're at in your career and how much time you're dedicating to it. Cultivating and growing that is never going to hurt, when it comes to growing this business. Have you seen examples of when agents and even yourself, when you've had those super strong relationships, that has actually helped your business grow? Or talk to us a little bit about how those strong relationships help, your career really go into the next level.
Yeah. Well, we have to remember that people are going to remember how you made them feel, not probably what you said, right? And I've had so many transactions, and I'm actually training a new agent right now. She's on her first deal, and I'm constantly reminding her, like, how to communicate and what not to say and then when to say it. And one thing I just left with her, just told her recently, was like, clients have always given me good feedback when I've over communicated, but I over communicate at the right times and not probably some of the negative things that were kind of happening on the back end, but I give them the options. And I've always had clients come back to me and say, thank you for delivering on that. And I've even had a first time home buyer that I was like so on top of because I knew she just did not know what was going. And when she left me a review, if you're not using Google Business, I recommend it. Such a lovely review, just saying that Angela was always there And she always encouraged me, even if I didn't know what I was doing, she would say, just keep doing, you're doing a good job. And I didn't know she would remember that, but I would always like reinforce that she was doing such a good job. So just like the perception you're putting out into the world of how you made someone feel will be what gets you the referrals and what gets you future business. But again, we have the element of time of when people are ready to buy or market conditions that may exist and we just don't have control over. But if you're working and your first thing is, how am I working with my client to put a great representation of who I am out into the world, you're always going to get more business and you're going to get the referral business. And a lot of my business I get these days is referral business, people using me 2, 3, 4, 5 times over for different transactions. And that's truly does what happens. But I think that for the newer agents, they just have to be willing to put the time in and the work in and find good mentorship, find people that can be advisors to them and be selective of the brokerages you work at, and make sure you're getting what you need out of them.
Yep. And finding the right fit in your brokerage, is so key. And I think that, is really the foundation of all of this, finding a brokerage that's going to support you and has the right tools and resources for you and is going to be there for you throughout your career.
This episode of The Real View is brought to you by the Ohio Association of Community Colleges. Ohio's network of community colleges provides accessible training that accommodates the busy lifestyles of aspiring real estate professionals at half the price of a traditional university. With convenient locations in every part of the state, as well as online options, Ohio's community colleges are your smart choice for pre-licensing education. For more details or to start the journey to a real estate career, visit the education page at ohiorealtors.org and then click on the pre-license course locations.
Super important. So where do we start, or what's your first step in building those strong relationships? How do we start that cultivation, and what does that look like from a beginning perspective?
The first is to lead with your value and lead with what you want out of your career. Stop thinking about the money aspect. I know that's really hard. And this is going back to why you might need to have a side career or you might be able to do other things, because you can't lead with desperation, right? So leading with that authentic value and making sure you're keeping in touch with your clients. Something I truly love is email marketing. And it's a great nurture vehicle for, let's say you're going out and meeting people and they're like, I'm not ready now. Provide the value through an email, provide them local updates, provide them something that they can take away, that they can see you're actually a real estate and market leader. And I know that might feel uncomfortable at first, but you need to get comfortable with reading the real estate news and the market news. So you have actual advice to lead with when you're having conversations with people. Know what the current interest rates are, all these little tiny things that even if you're just starting out and you're like, I have no clue what to do, start reading those blogs, start figuring how, at least in my opinion, email marketing and these communication skills that are so necessary to lead us to the value to get the business, because you eventually will get the business because they're going to remember going back to how you made them feel.
Absolutely. That's a great starting point. Just educating yourself, on all things real estate, being that expert. I think so much of like what consumers want right now is that expert and someone who's going to say, I can, get everything for you that you need. I'm going to be that resource for you, despite anything else that you may see or hear or read on the internet, because there's so much out there, as we all know, that isn't true. And if they have someone they can trust and go to that they know is going to be the expert, then they're going to have a really positive experience. And they're going to remember that, especially that feeling of, I feel like I'm safe with this person and that, I can trust them and leading me through a really complicated transaction and, what can be a super stressful time in people's lives. So I think, that's so true. And when we think about like what consumers are wanting and what clients are wanting, that trust factor, I think is so huge. Talk to us just a little bit about the importance of trust in this relationship with our clients, how we can really build that up and kind of what that means to the relationship.
Well, we have to remember with trust that most clients these days can search a lot on their own. And that's why they sometimes devalue a relationship with a real estate agent. But knowing that you are going to deliver in a way that's beyond what they can find online, right? Because we all know that anyone has the ability to sell a home on their own. And some people do opt for that. And that is okay. There's an investor I work with. He will only use me as a buyer's agent because he purposely uses a discount brokerage to list all of his properties. I can't fight him on that. I tried to win and prove my value. He doesn't want to do it. And I have to just accept that and know that he'll come back to me for the buying side. There's going to be people like that. And he finds value in me as a buyer's agent, apparently not as a listing agent, but I have to be okay with the decision that he's made and know what I can get out of him. And providing that value when I am time to be the buyer's agent is making sure to just not be a lazy person about it. Make sure to show up and do your due diligence with communications. I mean, on a side note, the reason why I even got this investor to work with is I was recommended by somebody because they had worked with so many terrible real estate agents that just wouldn't show up. And I'm like, really? Because like in 1 year, I did 3 transactions for this guy. You guys can't show up for this? This is like money on a silver platter for me. And other people squandered it. And that's the only reason I got the opportunity. So think about how you expect companies to show up for you. Think about how you expect customer service to exist when you go to a restaurant or a doctor. Everyone has the same expectations for real estate agents, you know? And if you think about, well, I expect a certain level of service when I go to a high-end steakhouse, right? Because they're paying us a lot of money, right? An analogy of going to a steakhouse. You better deliver. That better be customer service. You better look the part. You better deliver on all the questions they have. And that's what the expectations are. And that's how value is delivered at the end of the day. So think about how you expect people to show up for you and do the same for other people in your transactions. And then the value is delivered.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put it and to think about it. That these people are investing, thousands of dollars with you. They want to be sure that they're getting that for their money. You know what I mean? They're not just paying for a McDonald's drive-through. They are paying for that steakhouse level of service. And you're right. There's so many agents out there who have given realtors, really bad reputations. And we do almost have to work a little bit harder, especially, knowing what we went through even just in the past year with what was out in the media and some misinformation, that existed. I think now we have to work twice as hard, to be delivering on that high quality level of service to make sure the consumer knows that, hey, we are here. We are not all what you read in the paper and those bad experiences, those agents who wouldn't respond or show up, we're not all like that. And that's what you can control. I think I heard so much about like, well, how do we navigate tough times? We're going through change and what can we do? Focus on you and what you can do and the level of service that you can provide. And that's something so easily controllable. I think when we look at, how do we get through these tough times? Focus on what you can do and how you are treating your clients. And that'll be a really great way to get through some of the stressful times. Absolutely.
You hit the nail on the head because don't worry about anyone else, worry about yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Don't worry. And actually just assume, I know this is crazy, but just assume everyone else is doing a crappy job. So if you can know that everyone else is doing a crappy job, just deliver and you're going to shine amongst everyone else. And you're going to get opportunities that are unexpected. So just deliver and do what is expected of you for these thousands of dollars you're making and sometimes fairly easy transactions. Go above and beyond because they are going to remember that. And then they're going to recommend you to other people.
Yep, 100%. And I think that consistency is like one of the huge building blocks of trust. Like when we think about how to build trust and how to build those relationships, just being consistent, working your butt off and making sure that they know when you're delivering on everything that you need to be delivering is a really great way to build that trust and start that really strong relationship. I think is super important. And another thing, when we think about relationship building and what all goes into that is that authenticity, right? And I think you talked about it, especially when you're thinking about how you're presenting yourself on social media and things like that. Talk to us a little bit about authenticity, how to be authentic, the importance of it, and why it's such a big part of building these relationships.
Well, being authentic just comes down to not pretending to be something you're not. I know that with social media, we do feel this need to kind of put an appearance on of who we kind of want to be. But at the end of the day, I'm going to always go back to it. People remember how you made them feel. And that's what leads to authenticity. I mean, if you've ever gone to, like, I'll give you a good example that happened to me Like I went to a doctor and I was just like so unimpressed with this doctor. So I'm like, let me Google search another doctor in the area. And I found someone with 5 stars and they were in the same practice. And I was like, what the heck? So I went back to the same doctor and had a completely different experience. And I just thought to myself, like, isn't that funny that this woman like just turned me off so bad based off the way she felt, made me feel like she just felt like she didn't really have any answers. And it was just like, I was like, this is my experience. Like, you're a doctor. You're supposed to kind of give me more. And I just feel like the other doctor, she led with this just a concern of value, of caring about my needs. And she felt authentic to me. And she had a natural way of doing it. And it wasn't anything complicated. It was just my experience. And so now I'm never going to waste my time going to this other doctor. I'm only going to go to her and I can see why she had 5 stars, because she gave me an experience that wasn't, by the way, that overwhelming. It was just, she just delivered.
Yeah.
And I'll go off another tangent, and hopefully this aligns with authenticity, but just it's things that are coming to the top of my head. I Google searched recently the best dry cleaner in my area. Okay. I found a dry cleaner with 5 stars. I was like, really? A dry cleaner with 5 stars? This is kind of crazy. I went, it's not in a fancy area in my town. He's been there like 20, 30 years, kind of run down. The nicest person. He offered me a bottle of water and texted me, and my alteration was done before the expected date. Think about how low that bar is. He gave me bottled water and smiled and got something done fast.
So
Guys, the bar's low. You just have to freaking be a nice person and lead with genuine integrity, and people will see that. But again, it goes back to the time element. If you're rushing and people feel desperation, have you ever watched somebody on Facebook desperately asking for money? You can sense it. Nobody wants to be sold. Okay. So you're going to have to allow back to the mindset, allowing the time to let these things happen naturally. And after several transactions, you're going to kind of see, oh, okay, this kind of makes sense. I understand what has to happen. But leading with authenticity comes from a genuine care of wanting to lead authentically.
Yeah, so true. There, you can't fake authentic. I think a lot of the times when people try to do that, consumers are so smart. And you talked a little bit about it. That they're educated. They're looking at stuff online. They're coming into it with kind of more of an idea than maybe they have in the past, and they're going to be able to tell. I mean, your clients are going to know if you're not being authentic. Your interactions. The consumer is so smart these days, and they're going to be able to tell real quick if you're coming off authentic or not.
Absolutely. But you also don't have to be a know-it-all. Like, you don't have to know everything there is to know about real estate. Or if you're brand new, you don't have to have every single financial report ready to go. Sometimes going back to authenticity is just saying, hey, I don't know the answer to that, but I would gladly find the answer for you. I mean, I'm a managing broker. After 10 years of being in real estate, there's still things I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't lie. I say, hey, look, let's figure it out together. Just lead with, I'm going to get you the answer. You don't know it now, but you can figure it out. Be authentic. Don't lie and put yourself in a position where you're going to actually hurt yourself and you're going to make yourself look like a crazy person. It's a fine line of being confident, but then also accepting you don't know everything, and you're going to get the answer for them.
Yeah. And I think that helps build trust too. If your client seeing you're taking the extra time to go find something out and being honest and saying, hey, like, I'm not sure about this, but let me check and I'm going to get you the answer. I think, talk about trust. I mean, that right there, it builds that trust and showing that, you will take the extra time. And like you said, I mean, some of this stuff is like so easy and so basic to do. You know what I mean? I think sometimes when you think of like building relationships, people think I have to go above and beyond. I need to be sending like flowers on anniversaries and all this like crazy stuff. But it's just really having that open communication, building that trust, and, working hard and doing your job. It sounds like that in itself is really going to help build those relationships.
It is. It sounds oversimplified.
Yeah.
But truth. There's no magical, just click this button or just do this that solves these problems. These are a lot of skills that take time. And if you don't have them, it's okay. You can develop them. You can learn how to develop these. You might be in a career or come from a career where you can clock in, and no matter how terrible you are, how great you are, you still get paid. Kind of doesn't work like that in real estate. You have to do a great job, and then you're going to get paid if you can close the transaction, not just showing up for it, and some deals don't work out. and you don't make the money. So just making sure that you are going into this with, I want to learn, I am willing to figure out how to make this happen. I don't know everything, but I'm willing to try is probably the best kind of agent for me to train than somebody that's so cocky and confident. I mean, I've talked to people that I was going to hire. I remember talking to this one guy on the phone and he's like telling me everything he knows about the end of real estate. And I was like, please don't let him want to work for me because he already knows too much. You know what I mean? He's not a flexible, moldable person. You got to be flexible and be willing to say, hey, look, this is great. I'm going to learn a lot. And that's how I am, and I think you probably feel the same way being a creative marketing person. We got to flow. There's ebbs and flows of an evolution of business and social media. So we can't get too stuck on how to do stuff.
Absolutely. And to always be learning, I think when you come into something like feeling like everything or that there's nothing else, you're the expert pro in this, always be learning, always be curious. There's always out there more, that we can learn and be better at. Always be working on that. I think that's a really great mindset to have. And it sounds like, you're very similar in that as well.
Yes. And that's why I really have enjoyed focusing in on teaching agents how to kind of adapt a publicist mindset or a journalist mindset, because there's so many ways to get to real estate and to do leads. And we all kind of go down their avenue of social media and, focusing on cold calling. If that's what your thing is, that's awesome. But there's something about being visible and being present that also is another skill that needs to be learned. And that visibility maybe doesn't always have tangible results, but it will ultimately lead you to further success. And that is why I liked and I love sharing that aspect of people's kind of putting that hat on and going, oh, that's true. There's other ways I can make sure to show up, be visible online through different routes that maybe some people aren't thinking about. And media sometimes is the vehicle for that.
Yeah, I love that. No, you just get it. We're on the same wavelength. We're on the same mindset coming from, that media marketing industry. So totally true. And I want to thank you, Angela, so much for coming on, for joining me today, for sharing this great wealth of information. And I know we all have work to do in building these relationships, but it's easy and you can do it if you put your mind to it and have the right attitude going into it. So I want to thank you again so much for joining me and for sharing today. This was really great.
Yeah, I love this. You can see I'm passionate about it. And I hope that if anything, the takeaway is that agents really just need to learn these skills and they can be developed. And it's just going to take, my favorite word that I'm going to leave with everyone with is time.
Yes. Be patient with yourself. It takes time. You're not slacking because things might take longer than you're expected. Be patient and you got this. We all got this. Well, thank you again, Angela, so much for coming on. And to all of our listeners, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back with you next week. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.